of our adventure into non-duality, non-dual therapy, and the collective. And inevitably what happens is a kind of popping of little crises in individuality. This, getting these reflections back on ourselves, or on our attitudes, or on where we're not free, which can be difficult to process, difficult to allow. A little bit like the shadows come forward. And it makes total sense when you think about it. Because, we are, each one of us, centered as in a point from which consciousness is happening, through which consciousness is happening, like a telescope. There's a central opening for the one consciousness through the individual into the whole. And this consciousness is totally free. But what does the consciousness perceive? What's forming the identity or the sense of self or the person is actually, in the first instance, everything but ourself. All those reflections which tell us who we are, what we are, where we are coming back from the environment. We look into our mother's face. We don't see our own face. We see whether she's happy or sad. And we take it personal. We look out the window, or we open up to the feeling of the atmosphere where we've arrived as a child. And maybe the atmosphere is a bit depressed, a bit dark, a bit like stressed, as if it's waiting for something. And we define ourselves by that. This is what we are. This is what consciousness experiences as being a deep layer of the individual. And because it's so pure and open, our perception when we're little, we don't filter out between what we want and what we don't want yet. So we're also sensing the shadows. We're sensing the things which have no place, the things which nobody talks about. In fact, children are reading energy more than they're listening to processing words at the beginning. So what we might be experiencing is that there's a face of happiness which is pure stress. And beneath that, an incredible feeling of wrongness, or shame, discomfort. And that's what we are. And of course, out of this soil, we begin to develop as a personality, as a self. And increasingly, we split, but the first split in a way is splitting ourselves from the environment, as if the self inside ourselves, which is that angry, ashamed place, is private, and the anger, shame, which is out there, is public. As if this is who we really are, this wrongness. And then life begins to be a dance between the wrongness inside and the wrongness outside, like an either-or. And I try and tell it really, really simple because, of course, stuff is happening and it's not... There's so many flavors, it's so rich. But the principle, the formula of this dance between me, not me, me, not me, me, not me, me, not me, this starts very young. And often what we're trained is that we're not allowed to have both, we have to have either or. So we get very confused. And where we get very confused between, is this the environment or is this me, when actually it's all the environment of what we experience. It's the field of experience. But because we get confused about where the private and the public is, we form beliefs which are very strong and very dogmatic. And those beliefs, part of those beliefs will be about how we relate to the authority of the environment in order to make that division. You know, in naturalness, either all these impressions is who I am, or none of them are. That's the only real either or, and that's not even true either. They both is, but then we speak non-dual. We are everything and nothing. But when we look to direct experience, we really are everything and nothing. It's not a problem. So we form these strong beliefs about authority, the authority of the collective. And in this beliefs that there is authority in the collective, which is separate from us, immediately what's born is a kind of perpetrator-victim structure. Because the one that has the authority is the perpetrator, and the one that is brought into submission, made to conform, is the victim. So you see the pathway where our universe literally turns outside in. If every single impression we get from the environment is our own experience, right? Then releasing that authorship of our own experience and saying, this is the environment acting on me, makes us incredibly disempowered. We are literally disappearing in this ocean of control and fear. And it's, as we know, it's a little bit worse, because in disowning the experience, we're also disowning that we projected part of it. We're disowning our own projections. We're not taking any responsibility, which again is disempowering like crazy. And it gets a little bit worse again, because we inherit these attitudes towards the environment, towards the whole, towards the collective. We inherit them in the stress reflexes of our genes. Be afraid. Be afraid of authority. Someone out there is taking care of us. If not God, then the state. If not the state, then the church. Where do we look for comfort or for solutions? In the government. And we can literally feel that structure sometimes, even though we might not think that we believe in government being a caring, benevolent authority that's got our back. It does give us a kind of feeling of safety, because it's programmed like that. Big Brother will take care of you. Sorry. But there is behind that the idea that nobody's out there taking care of us, that nobody's in control. Actually, it's our kind of grandchildren on testosterone who are running the show, and through fighting against each other. In this realization that nobody is responsible, there can be an enormous amount of fear that comes forth. Almost unbearable.
May I say something? Because what is popping up in me is that we project more and more our things we don't want to have in the authority, and because of that, we make a split, and then we don't trust the authority anymore.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So yet he adds that because of a lot of what we project and othering is what we don't want. We project it towards the authority often. Then we can't in any way have a healthy relationship with the authority because they're containing all of that evil stuff, which we were trying to get rid of. But we're still addicted because we have to have somewhere to put it. It can't be ours. And it's alive inside of us. So authority issues come forward. And where authority as a quality is trying to find itself, there is a connection to individuality, meaning our unique experience, which is quite grandiose. It's almost narcissistic to say, I am the author of the whole universe. Nobody experiences anything like I do. It's true. But you see how we've been hammered into not allowing the uniqueness of our own experience, as if it's a terrible, lonely, awful, horrible endpoint, forever alone. But why should it be so terrible? It includes everybody and everything. You get a sense of the place where we're getting stuck. So there's that idea of like, let's all be narcissistic psychopaths and little by little run the whole world and be lawless. There's that monster. And on the other side there is this place of being utter and totally disempowered good citizens, complete victims to a crazy world. We pay our taxes, we pay interest on our money, even when it's not in debt because the bank exists. We pay for TV services we don't want, which tell us how and what we are. We become victimized. The whole world is going to war and there's nothing we can do about any of it. Lunatics are running the show and that's politics. We even stop caring. It's not even victim, it's like something dies inside, because it's hopeless. So we develop a kind of new age theory where there's a great division happening. So all of the scumbags go down, and all of the enlightened ones go up. Let's try and separate like that in the vertical. Because there's no hope for them. It's like we're parallel universes. The ones that get it, the ones that don't get it. Yes, it's quite like the end of the world, and then the goats and the whatever. Yes, there is the narrow gate, and there is in Judaism at least the righteous ones get risen from the dead and everybody else stays dead. But Revelations, also in Christianity, that's the end of times when there is this separation happening. Or we go to heaven or we go to hell, as individuals, if we take the Western model. Do whole communities go to heaven or hell? And what's this going to heaven or going to hell, being on the wrong or the right side of history? Who's deciding that? Who's judging it? So now we've got this authority showed up again, God. Yep, like Mengele. You can suffer another day and you go to the chambers. You live, you die. You get eternal life, you get eternal damnation. And some of you are maybes, maybe. If you work very hard in the middle ground, or reincarnate many times, maybe you get another chance at it, another chance to score. Go on. That goal into heaven. And we're very deeply programmed in this stuff. And it's internalized. It's internalized in a way that the authority of the head has to dictate to the heart and to the body to the place, the area of arousal and power and freedom and aliveness and naturalness, sensuality. What and how much we're allowed to feel. And that's asking for trouble, isn't it? Because you dictate to life, life tends to answer back. You can tell a flower how it should grow, but a flower will grow how it grows. Even if you get the best genetic engineering to make those bananas blue, there's a yellow wanting to come out. So there's a big mess up with this authority issues. And partly what happens when we begin to reclaim this dimension of pure consciousness, meaning consciousness which isn't tied up with being somebody somewhere, with an identity, with being a person, with being of a particular citizenship, of a particular group or tribe. When we begin to find that space of consciousness which is always free, which is abundant in resources, which isn't even separate, which is always available wherever we are. What can come forward through the personality is a kind of great rebellion. And this comes with a lot of rage. A lot of anger. And it almost can be like an allergic response, like trying to throw off something which doesn't belong. Pure vitality. But then we come back into that old loop where to be angry is to be bad. Meaning the moment our anger shows up, we're already feeling guilty about it. Even if our anger is about not feeling guilty anymore because we're falsely accused and because of the injustice, we're already feeling guilty that there is this rage. Meaning anger is experienced as bad, as bad causing. Almost as evil. And reflexively the body is closing it down, closing it down, closing it down. It's like there's a rage which says, I exist, and the whole reflexes of the body are saying, don't! Easy, easy. Or I am free, whoa! To a limit. Later. Or I am pure love. Wait till you die. Not in the body. The body gets messy. Not here. Love suffers here. So this anger that shows up basically to reclaim the center position of authority, to reclaim consciousness, to reclaim the deeper centrality of our own experience, through which we experience all the impressions of the environment, whether it's family, community, what's happening in our tribe, what's happening in the world. This anger tends to show up, and then it gets funneled back again in a kind of almost autoimmune response. It's not allowed to be. Oh no, anger. No. Qualities of true nature don't have anger in them, do they? They're all a bit weak. Peace. Love. Little bit of freedom in the background. Purity, it's totally drips. So anger becomes, again, it's so primal, but it becomes something which really needs to be allowed to be reframed as pure vitality, which is working for us and not against us. And now our rage is immense when you look at the anger of injustice. The anger around that there is suffering happening. Where it feels it's not deserved. that children get sick, that animals suffer cruelty, that innocent people are hurt by random forces. This rage at injustice is extremely explosive. It feels like it can shatter all the illusions. It feels like it's got such a strong sense of truth coming online, and an exhilarating freedom when it's allowed to be. It's like an incredible catalyst for inner growth if it's handled skillfully. If you look at the raw energy of it, it's like hydrogen, it's atomic. Infinite power. But do we trust ourselves? Are we able to risk being the bad guy because we felt some anger? Are we able to take responsibility for this authority, for this responsibility, for this power? For this compassion? So what often happens when we look at the political, national level is that you've got this great big playing field called the world. And within us there's many old rages, forbidden rages about injustice. Meaning a very old sense of what's right that's been confused with binary mind, judgment. The old thing, heaven, hell, right side of history, wrong side of history. It's allowed to be, it's not allowed to be. Just that primitive stuff. I want the pleasure, not the pain. Good versus bad. Pure judgmentalism. And then there is this raw agony of injustice, which is an energy. An energy which is the scream of suffering happening on the raw interface of true nature. You know, when there is a conflict in the world, we talk about how awful it is that innocent people are killed. So who's not innocent? Who's allowed to be murdered? Who's it okay for us to kill? Because killing, just by saying innocent people are killed, this is terrible, what we're saying is it's okay to kill people if they're not innocent. And who decides if they're innocent or not? Where's the judge? Who's on trial? So this child that was dressed up as a child soldier, indoctrinated by his environment to do good, to protect his mother and his sisters, given a machine gun. He's 7 years old and he gets blown up by a drone. He's not innocent? Or is it an age-related thing? So after the age of 20, you're no longer innocent, and when you're over 70, you're innocent again. You see what a power conversation there is going on here? And this amazing quality, innocence, being weaponized, even in the name of righteousness. We should not kill innocent people. Well, no, that's not true. We should not kill. And why should we not kill? Because there is incredible suffering in taking another life for the one that kills. Suffering which will never be met. Maybe in prison among other killers. Maybe somebody there will get it. The pain which is there. The agony of being on the wrong side of history. You thought you were fighting for your country, for Japan, you were doing everything right, you were totally obedient. And then you were taken prisoner. Then you come back and everybody is shaming you because you were on the wrong side of history. Innocently. And it's so unfair. And here's the injustice again. So where true nature suffers directly, we really come into an incredible rage. And the rage is, in a way, saying, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Something needs to be protected. We have to awaken from the core of ourselves. And what it's about is the qualities. They're so potent, they're so essential, there's so much matter. So when we look towards the field of suffering and we're looking into the world, we do belong. Here is this quality of belonging also, which has been so sold out according to the authority. Like, I must belong to this group, so I will give up my authority and I will conform. And then there's a rebellion against it, but underneath it there is this kind of needing to belong to your family, to your community, to your tribe. And it's not that we choose it. We might hate them all. But when something happens in your community, let's say somebody from your tribe, somebody that looks like you, same class, same kind of background, same kind of education, same kind of worldview, someone like that is taken hostage, let's say. And you see the face, and you look at it in the eyes, and you see your own son-in-law or brother-in-law. It's affecting you more than 20, 30, 40,000 people being killed somewhere else. It's happening to your tribe. It's like it's happening to your body. And you don't want to belong to this tribe, but you belong. The identification is somatic. This guy looks just like your neighbor. And so it comes up more qualities. Belonging, the depth of care, the depth of family. And it comes forward in a tribalistic way, almost. Protection. We can have all kinds of ideas about things which go on in the world, and we can be okay with that stuff happens. Yeah, there are prostitution rings. They're selling sex slaves in Europe. Okay, but when it's our sister, or our neighbour's sister, our good friend's sister, when it's no longer abstract, when it becomes real, when we begin to feel it in our flesh, in our bones, something starts to awake. And it awakens with a kind of rage. And this rage, again, funnels into judgment. Because rage has to be justified. So how do we justify our rage? We judge. We are right. This is wrong. This is the right side. This is the wrong side. It can't just be that there is a rage on behalf of well-being. On behalf of the innocence of the whole, that it can't just be that it breaks our heart for everyone involved, that there is this suffering. We have to justify it. And again, now comes forward an authority issue, because it seems to be that we're the only one that actually cares about this. The rest of our community doesn't seem to see the threat that's happening. There's all of these gang rapes happening, and we immediately get condemned for caring about it. Because our community is a very politically correct community. Our tribe is very, very tolerant. So we have a conflict and more injustice, because there's a conflict between belonging to our tribe and naturalness and inclusion and humanity. We're all human, right? Yes, we're all human, but there's ethnicities, and there's different cultures, and there's different tribes, and they're clashing. And we belong to one of them, not all of them. There's this otherness playing out all over the place. And what can we do? We can go and join Amnesty International or a human rights organization and start dictating human values, human rights. Go work for the UN. Back in the day, it was the League of Nations. Try and fix it from the outside. And scream with injustice about human rights and make blacklists and make condemnations. Target certain areas. And then more injustice comes because you forgot about the other areas and you're too much concentrating on this area. That's anti-Semitic. What about this? What about this? What about that? Trying to fix it from the outside, screaming about human rights, but without actually checking what is it to be a human. And here you are in your tribe, in your country, and you're working for a human rights organization. And you're a good Dutch person from a tolerant country of the West.
That's a joy.
And then suddenly some of your compatriots vote for this right-wing maniac who gets more and more power and starts doing all kinds of stuff. And you go on holiday to Germany, and the Germans say, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed to be Dutch. More injustice. Yeah, so you should be ashamed to be German. You're eating my grandmother. You should give me my dinner for free.
Give my bike back.
And the Americans look at it all and say, you Europeans are a shit show. You should be ashamed. You're so barbaric, and you started colonialism. Slavery came from you guys. All this conflict is all because of those Europeans. And the rest of the world looks at America and says, yeah. You know, if there's one place where we put all of our evil, hellish activities and greed and selfishness and narcissism, it's in America. Yes.
Because it's true.
It's true. America first. Thank God there's Canada.
To protect us.
Canada, where they conveniently just erased a whole population of local people in order to settle from different European countries, who still claim ancestry. They're not going to give it up.
The best country to make all Indians Christian.
Canada first.
My own mess.
Yes, because you're Canadian. Shame on you.
That's why you came here.
People on your bikes are not following. No smiles.
Exactly. The evil cyclists of Holland.
And the happy people. You're so lucky to be Dutch.
Let's move.
To where? Switzerland.
Curaçao, we can take Curaçao. It's ours anyhow.
Switzerland with the banks full of stolen Jewish gold.
We should take the ocean.
I'll take
the
it.
ocean.
You take the gold. It's okay.
So we have this very difficult relationship with our nationality and with other people's nationalities. This kind of strange partitions, which is basically partitions of tribes, you know, or social organizations. But we don't seem to be able to take it out of ourselves. We can burn the Dutch flag, or we can disown Mother England, or we can attack, you know, the very basis of America as an American. But basically, when we're in trouble somewhere else in the world, we call our embassy. We've got our passport. Literally, it is our identity, written in black and white.
And when somebody attacks our country, we rise up for our country. Yes.
No.
She knows how to please.
She knows something.
She likes paper. Especially for you.
Used or not used?
That's actually a very serious question when it comes to dogs. Yeah.
Just licked my finger.
So we seek the protection of this greater authority which is our country. And when our country is attacked, it's like our home is attacked, like our house is attacked. And there's something very real about that as well to us. So it's much easier to project stuff that we suffer deep inside ourselves onto other countries. Or onto other parts of our own country.
Belgium.
So it's so when we are able to protest and find others that agree with us from our new tribe against a particular suffering, baby killing, whatever is the archetype we want to bring forward to the feeling of it. The death of babies, that's a good one, because babies shouldn't die. That's true nature dying. Or whenever we are steered towards that direction, suddenly we have this legitimacy. Legitimacy, this energy, this agony, this suffering of injustice, of babies being killed, and every one of us has a tortured baby inside of ourselves. Of ethnic clash, of being culturally humiliated for being othered, or being from a different class, or poverty, or being made inferior. All of this, or our rage at our own superiority, which delivers nothing, our empty superior Western status, when we're all so bloody depressed. So when we have a group of people that will join together, it validates that suffering, and it allows the rage. Maybe as a group we're allowed to be angry. Maybe as a group we're allowed to claim power, we're allowed to rebel, we're allowed to take authority, we're allowed to begin composing narratives, rewriting the narratives, exposing the truth, which is always out there, still. Because nobody's really taking responsibility. A lot of people are tripping on it because it's a great catharsis. And so, also what is being delivered is a feeling of belonging, of togetherness. Something to do, something of deeper purpose. Suddenly there's this incredible sense of purpose. a feeling of tribe comes forward. We're moving together as a group. It's like the individuality can dissolve into the whole, and we are right. And this suffering is allowed to be there, and we're going to do something about this suffering. Together. And for a while it can be amazing. It's like life begins to make sense. We are changing the world. And we're bandying around words like truth and the more extreme, the more extreme the projection, the more legitimate it is for this rage to be there, which means the more the feeling of togetherness is there, the more the feeling of purpose is there, the more the feeling of mission is there. And you see how it's really, really, really delicate, because there is incredible beauty in it. True nature is involved. Something's coming online. The belonging is coming online. The compassion is coming online. The care is coming online. But all of it as a group projected on behalf of somebody else, somewhere else, that maybe we actually don't even have any physical connection with. And then at a certain moment, summer becomes autumn, autumn becomes winter. Life goes on. And the cause is switched to somewhere else. Suddenly, a different agenda is happening. Something changed out there. It's no longer so yummy. It's no longer so clear-cut, the good versus evil. And we're left with all of our leaflets and stuff. Need to find another cause to rebel against. Or maybe go deeper into a rebellion against the core of all of these injustices everywhere. And we get into these little shadowy places where we're imagining things or even designing things in order to be able to feel that release again, that rush, that legitimization that we exist, that we're allowed to exist in our emotional body, that this pain is allowed to be here, that this traumatic residue which we have deep inside ourselves, this feeling of being annihilated, of being made extinct, of being humiliated, of loss, of unbearable cruelty, that all of this, which we carry as humans, is allowed to be there. But it goes on until it burns out. Because it will never give the fulfillment. Because the more that we are trying to correct it out there on the stage of the world, the more we're left alone in the basis. The more it's not about us. And it was always about us. There's this horrible bypass that happens of our own place where we suffer, where we cannot bear to be in our own basis. And we do it again. In the name of the other, to help the poor little things. As if it's helping. As if it helps a grieving mother who's lost a baby, that there is an incredible rage and destruction and pulling down memorials in central London. That helps. As if it helps the mother-baby bond, which goes through all the dimensions. Eternal. And so partly what happens is that we get caught in these vortexes where we're bringing more and more rage, unresolved, empowerment into the world, which is empowering the feeling of the world being bad. And then the expectation is that the world will be bad. And it's dependent on it. It's almost like an addiction. Inevitably. Individual by individual. You can be on a protest, you get a phone call that your granny's dying. Screw the protest, it was only ever a recreation. The suicidal murder energy is there in the background as this kind of feeling of total senselessness. So from a place of sacred activism, There is a very, very, very serious question here, because we are, from the center point of consciousness, if everything that we experience in our environment is our experience, we are responsible for it all. We can't just sit by and let horrific things happen. This is counterintuitive. We do care. We are responsible for each other. Our nations should work to make other nations less cruel, and hope that other nations will help make us less cruel. We long for that kind of togetherness, just like in a family system. But how to move then? What is a real sacred activist, if it's not this projecting and protesting and raging and getting lost in the wilderness of ideas and concepts and right and wrong and this is the truth and that's the lie, and how to defeat the enemy with propaganda? Burn flags, burn your own flag, burn your neighbour's flag, burn all the flags. So it's a very, very sober process, which doesn't mean we don't have opinions or don't care or don't engage in politics, but to, at the same time, relate to our own direct, intimate sense of suffering as if it matters. Because this critical moment, let's say we look at a place in Africa and we say, genocide, genocide, outrageous, outrageous, this genocide cannot be. And it's that particular word, genocide. It sets us alight. So, is it possible that when we put it out there and this word becomes a substitute for the feeling or for the actual relation, that we are actually making it worse? We're labeling things in order to get rid of them. We're labeling, as Yeti said, we're labeling something out there in order to close it down in here. So if it was possible for us to say, okay, something out there is absolutely horrific. I saw this thing in the news, which, it's terrible. I looked into the eyes of that person, they looked back. I saw my own daughter. And this doesn't lead, in the first instance, to being on this side or that opinion, or right or wrong or whatever. But we really allow ourselves to respond to it. Take the word genocide. What's the feeling of that? Where do we recognize that energy? How is it affecting us? What's our relationship with it? How is it playing out in our daily life? Where is it circulating within our relationship to ourselves? Where is it circulating within our relationship to our family? To our tribe? Who do we do like they don't exist? Which kind of people do we completely and totally ignore? How does it translate for us? Because without that energetic recognition, it means nothing. It's a big running away from, it's almost like it's feeding off it to get the power online, to get the belonging online, but it's only for a day, as long as there's an excuse. And it's not either or. But then the way we move into the world begins to be a little bit less political and a little bit more diplomatic. A little bit more seeing what the whole is asking for. Standing for the qualities. Standing for what's essential. As being the real thing, and the rest is symptomatic. And that doesn't cancel out that we are part of a tribe or part of a nation, or that we feel especially hit close to home when certain things happen. Or that compassion works through identifying with facial structures, so we see a particular face and somebody far away and we see our own brother in that face, and so something comes online, something's opened up, something wakes up in terms of this is real. But we graduate a little bit, we become more whole. First of all, within ourselves. So, if we were, for example, with this, just because it's the fashionable word of the past year or two, this word genocide, which is so much connected with the incredible pressure on population, on expansion of population, and COVID, this kind of shared feeling that something needs to happen because the numbers are going crazy. It's not sustainable. So this whole horror thing around genocide, if we were to go there to the sense of it, do we go there as the victim or do we go there as a perpetrator? Because even in the tiny little moments in our own lives in the past, it's always going to be a mixture of both. Let's say our father banished us from the family and we're not allowed to exist anymore, and he takes us off all the family photos. He does this kind of cleanse of us from the family. But we're alive inside our father from his point of view as well. We cannot have the suffering of one side without the suffering of the other. It couldn't exist. And we're taught that all of this is bypassing. We're told that this is bypassing. To go inside yourself when the world needs taking care of, you can go inside yourself later. That's escapist. But how on earth can we solve anything out there through our opinions and through our protests if we're not available for the whole picture? And what's the whole picture? But it's not a picture. It's not a pornography on social media. Death pornography. It's a whole experience, it's a whole atmosphere, and the atmosphere is affecting all of us all the time anyway. Because whatever events we see in the world are an expression of an atmosphere which is in the background, which is seeking to take form. So going there, like a pebble in a lake, a pebble in an ocean, it has a ripple effect. It changes the vibe. It changes that basic atmosphere. It can bring space. It can bring a kind of responsibility towards our neighbours, towards our tribe, towards our country, which means that we begin to have agency in what is the atmosphere of our country. Rather than being a victim of it with this complicated push-pull relationship with our nationality, we say, okay, this is my greater home. What atmosphere do I want to bring into this home? What's needed? Through this body, through these circles, through our trip to the embassy, through our time spent in the shopping mall. What am I ignoring? What's already here that I'm ignoring, that I've been trained to ignore? What is there to appreciate, to share, to contribute to the rest of the world? It gives this space to redeem something of the qualities which are in crisis. It's so much trauma/karma work, individual and collective, that it's incredibly worthwhile. Because just as we are affected by the collective, we are affecting the collective. And we forget that we're free right there. So easily. Let me give a really raw example, and then I stop. We are all here in this room, quite by now allowing the possibility that after this body dies, we will continue. That there is a transition that happens, and that we leave the body, and that there is this dimension where life continues. That our job is not done. Aren't we? We're used to connecting with people that have died. We can feel the connections. A very deep intuition of that. We're out of the commercial frame that all there is this life. We all have contact within ourselves with the timeless one that was probably here before we were born and which will be here after the experience of dying. But then, at least what I describe what happened in my clinic, comes somebody whose son is killed in the war. And for a while, it's just this devastating loss. And everybody's caught in this loss, and the loss is a done deal, and we have to get rid of the loss, and it's the end of the relationship, and that's it. And it all seems to be trauma work on this side of the veil. But when you really, really allow yourself to move with the felt sense of everything, and sitting there talking about this horrific war and what's happened and what the family's going through, suddenly realize that he's there in the room, and he's happy. And he's shining a particular kind of light stream of information towards his parents. Such a care and such a kindness. And he's doing it because there's a possibility, there's a chance that I might allow it to come through me. There's a little crack where he can come through. And they are also people who have been through many processes of inner growth where they realize that death is not the end, with very strong spiritual beliefs. But you see what happens in a time of trauma, also collective trauma. We keep people in the state that they were in when they died, and we ignore where they are. The movement which is always there, the acceleration in movement. How does this change therapy? You know, we have somebody whose daughter was raped in the festival. And the whole country and the whole social media and everybody is keeping her in a constant place of being raped and killed, raped and killed, raped and killed, raped and killed. But she's free. And she's so much more than that. And there needs to be space for everything that she was, including the integrity of how she came in and how she exited. And the validation of the experience that she had. And then there's a possibility of the validation of the experience of grief and shock, which the rest have. And all of this is coming through opening up the felt sense to what is here. Taking responsibility for everything that's here, not just according to the old narratives of right and wrong, but according to our own direct experience. So like babies, we are relearning to be like babies, of being able to read atmospheres. To be able to read atmospheres, first of all. We go outside into the town, into our country. What's the atmosphere in the country right now? What's the atmosphere in Holland? Now, we're not separating from it. It's like, what's the weather? To allow ourselves to attune, because this is the most natural thing. It doesn't say these are the good ones, these are the bad ones, these are the, no, there's some cruelty, there is some regret, there is some stress, there is some insecurity, but there's also a sense of purity. To begin to open up what is the most natural thing, which is the felt sense of the atmosphere, of the field of experience that we're in, without it controlling us. Then when anger comes forward, we can begin to recognize that it's on behalf of coming back to the center of our own consciousness to empower and validate areas of suffering which are needing attention, rather than throwing those areas at the other. To locate those qualities which are needing empowerment between ourselves and ourselves. But it's a very clear channel then into the world outside. If you imagine, I talk to the majority of us, you imagine the Dutch flag. What could it stand for? Which qualities could it represent as it waves in the wind? Which qualities would you want it to represent? How would it be okay for you, this flag? How would it be part of the world? not separate, just a contribution to them. How would it be free? And who's responsible